So, welcome to the UI UX design class. I am Archana Veena, and I have been a designer for the past 5 years with a background in visual arts and graphic design and finally UI UX design. So, today I start off with a primer about what our course is going to be about, what we are going to learn in the next 4 months, what are the projects you are going to undertake and what outcomes you can expect. So let us get started. So our first month or the 0th month is going to be prerequisites, which we are currently starting out with. After that, for the first month of your official course, you will be dealing with the fundamentals of UI UX as well as learning Figma. And after that, the second month will be focused on how to design the UI for a mobile app. And it will not just be UI using Figma, we will also focus on the UX part of things. And in the last month, we will look into website design. And in this case, you will take a real world website and redesign it, applying both the UX and the UI you have learned over the course and apply them for the use case of website design. So in the prerequisites, we will be covering what are the basics of visual design and graphic design and look into topics like color theory, typography, iconography, and also accessibility. And these topics are going to be your primer for learning UI UX because these things are also uh, an important knowledge base that you will be needing while you are applying UI and UX in your designs. And after that, once we start the course, in the first month, which is going to be all about foundations, we will be learning about all the things about the theory, the rules, the principles which are there in UI and UX, what forms the basis for UI UX, while at the same time learning how to use Figma. Throughout the whole month, on a daily basis, I will be giving you a small exercises and tools and tips on how to use Figma so that over the course of this month, you will slowly become comfortable with the tool so that when you move on to actually designing the UI for mobile or for websites, you are more comfortable and you will find the tool easy. So in the first month, your project or your case study is going to be a design evaluation. So as we learn the principles and laws that are applied in UI and UX, you will start to learn how to notice if a design is good or bad, what works and what doesn't work. And this is basically how you will learn how to train your eye and train your observational skills because that is primarily the most important skill as a designer is basically how you visually gauge your design. So for that purpose, we'll be starting with evaluating a design. And there is a principle and a technique called heuristic evaluation, which is used in UX. And that is what you will be carrying out for your project. So during the course of the month, we will do the evaluation together for examples that I pick out. And for your project, you will be given a real world example where you will have to apply the evaluation on your own and come out with a project report. So that will be the first month. And in the second month, where we will be tackling mobile UI UX design, we will go into the actual steps and processes that are followed while doing UX design in the real world. So what are the foundations? How do you actually understand user behavior? Because UI UX is all about designing for the user. So how do you do that? Then how do you design user flows? How does a user get from point A to point B while using a product? How do you decide what steps are required and what steps are unnecessary? So all of those UX principles will be implemented in this design project. And then you will also learn what are the principles that are specifically applied in the user interface part of mobile design. Because when designing for different devices and different environments, you will be using different principles. So what is it that you need to know when designing for mobiles? That will also be dealt with. And here you will be mastering your Figma skills, which you were introduced to in the previous month. So the final project report will also be a case study where you will present your design for the mobile app along with all of the processes and steps that you had followed for the UX study of that app as well. And finally, in the last month, here for the use case of a website, you will be applying everything you've learned in the past 2 months or 3 months. So design evaluation and both UI and UX principles, both the things that you had learned will be applied here. So you will first start off with a website that exists in the real world, and you will evaluate to figure out what is good or what is bad with the website. And after carrying out the evaluation, you will move on to actually redesigning it yourself. And this part of your final project or this third project will not be completely guided by me. It will be self-guided. You will be doing it yourself so that you can evaluate whatever you've learned and implement and apply it to come up with your own project report. So everybody will be given a choice of a website that they can redesign. And for the website UI UX design part, we will also be learning how to carry out responsive design, which is basically making your design readily available for different devices with different screen sizes. So in the second month, we learned about mobile design, and in the third month, we will learn about website design, which will be primarily used on desktops. But how do you transfer your design to be easily available on mobile as well? So we will learn how to do responsive design as well. And finally, all of the project reports that you will be generating throughout these 3 months, I will show you how to build your portfolio with these case studies and how to showcase them. Because in the design world and also the tech world, nowadays, your expertise is displayed through your portfolio and not just your CV or resume. CV or resume is still necessary, but when people want to see what you've actually done or what do you actually know, that is where they look for your portfolio. So at the end of the course, I will teach you how to put your project reports together, curate them into individual case studies, and present them on a live portfolio online. So that is going to be the entirety of these 3 months and what you can expect. I will also be catering the course according to you as the course progresses. I will be pacing it as it will be comfortable for you. And anytime there are any issues, any doubts, anything that you would like to repeat or go over once again can be raised, and we can look into it immediately. That was about the course, and the entire course objective, what we are trying to achieve here, is basically based off on a important or a popular quote, which is good design is obvious, but a great design is transparent. This basically means if you think about bad design or things that are irksome on first glance, that is very apparent. It is very easy to spot. In the same way, when you compare it to a good design, it is very easy to spot when you see something nice and it is pleasing. But when your design is great, when your design implementation is perfect, people don't even notice. They just are a part of the experience. They are a part of the process without even noticing that something is good, something is bad. No, they get their job done without a second thought. So in UX, that is what we are trying to achieve. In UX, the whole point of designing is you're trying to solve the problem for the user by keeping it intuitive and by keeping it easy for them. You're trying to achieve efficiency, you're trying to save time, you're trying to save efforts and keep the user happy. Whatever the user is trying to achieve by using your product, as a designer, your goal is to get it to them in the simplest way possible. So That is what we try to achieve in UX design. And through this course, we would like to get you all onto the path of achieving not only good, but also great design. I hope that was clear. And if you have any doubts about this course structure or anything you would like to talk about right now, please let me know. You can put it in the chat, or you can also ask over your mic. Any doubts regarding the course structure so far? Okay. So then let us get started with our prerequisites. So what is graphic design? So for the prerequisites, like I said, we will be focusing on visual design and graphic design. But why is it important? Why do we as UI UX designers need to know what is graphic design? I will get to it. Okay. So graphic design is basically the creation of visual content with the purpose of communication. So that is the only difference that sets apart design from art. Art is basically what you would call as creative expression. Art is done to express your own self, and it is done to evoke emotions. But there is no other purpose to it other than creative expression. But when you use art or any sort of visual medium with the purpose of conveying a message, is when you call it a graphic design, because there is a purpose behind that expression. Like in the examples I've shown here, we know the Mona Lisa, a very popular piece of art. Everybody all over the world knows about it and knows it to be one of the greatest works of art. It is there to showcase the artist's creative expression and also whatever emotions that the artist wanted to evoke out of the audience. In the same way, if you look at the graphic design poster, for example, here also you can see there is an image in the center, a visual cue, something creative just to attract your attention. But around it, you can see there is text. There are other graphical elements that is trying to convey information, not just evoke an emotion. There is actually specific information that the poster is trying to get to the audience, as in like there is a choir in Berlin. It is so and so season, what it is the 2017-18, and there is details about the tickets, about the venue, all of that. This could have easily been done in the form of a newspaper article where it is just lines of text. You can still convey this information. That is also a way of getting your information across. But using graphic design, what we are doing is using visual content to attract the audience and give them the information in a more interesting way. So what do graphic designers actually do is we use a mix of visual elements like images, typography, logos, and complex page layouts to communicate ideas. So there is no one right way to do things in graphic design. That is similar to art. There are multiple ways where you can achieve the same result. So if you look at these examples, like the first one is the poster for a brush. It is an advertisement for paint brushes. Here they've cleverly used imagery. They've also used colors, typography, and layout. And if you see, you can see that the black portion, the black outline, forms the tail of an animal to basically signify that this paintbrush has hairs from the tail of this animal. So again, it is just clever ways of creative expression, but this is done to convey a message or provide information to the audience. So as an advertisement, this is not only creative, but also it is doing the job of giving the information. In the same way, if you look at the second one, here they've used creative ways of just typography and imagery. Not much use of colors, it's just black and white. That is also one way of doing things. Here again, there are timings, venues, what is it about, what is the name of the event, who are the people there, what can you expect. All of the information conveyed just using design. And if you look at the other two examples, you can see there are creative uses of the layout, of typography, and iconography. The graphic elements are strong, are bold. The use of color is strong and bold, unlike the first two examples. And here they are doing the same thing, that there is an event that is being held, there is a date, there is a venue in both the cases. So all of them are examples of graphic design, and all of them are valid examples where there might be rules which are governing them, but not any single one is not the correct answer. There are different ways to do it, and all of it are creative ways. But at the end of the day, it is only successful, it is only valid if it fulfills the purpose of conveying the information. If any of these posters fail to do that, then the graphic design portion of it did not work out. It was only the artistic side that came through, but not the graphic design side. So why is this important? It is because you're not only trying to make something look visually stunning in graphic design, it also is about organizing complex information to be delivered in the most comprehensible way. No matter how crazy or creative your design is, it will fail if you have not uh, conveyed your information, or the audience is not able to comprehend it, even if you've tried to convey it. So let us see how graphic design has evolved over the years and uh, gotten to where it is right now, or as we know it. So the earliest known form of artistic expression is the cave paintings. We all have heard of cave paintings back in school. So this was the first evidence of visual communication that was about 38,000 BC. This very long ago. And that is just an evidence to show that humanity already showed an interest for communicating with visuals, even though it is unclear who they were trying to communicate it to. They wanted to still document their lives and show that information in the form of visuals. And you can see these are very simplified stick figures, very simplified animals. But from back then to now, we are able to get the information that the person back then was trying to convey. We don't know what their purpose was, but now we can see that, okay, this person probably led a life where they were hunting, or they came across so many animals during their lifetime. We know that only because of them wanting to communicate an idea. After cave paintings, what came along was not just phonetic sounds, but they were logographic or hieroglyphics to be exact. So this means icons that represented entire words and concepts. It wasn't about words, it wasn't about letters. The first things to come were icons. And if you look closely, you can see all of these iconic representations that we are seeing here from years and centuries ago. These are basically a callback or a representation of us still using icons in our design. We have icons on our apps, we have icons on websites. We still use the same type of visual communication so many years past. And that is just one element of graphic design that has been carried throughout the years, that still works. And after iconography, the next thing that came about was typography. And this started to catch on, and letters and words became essential as texts and books were being produced by hand. So people wanted to convey more complex ideas, wanted to do it in a more eloquent way, wanted to put it down in simpler words. So that is where they came about with typography, words, and text. And the first form of typography was handwritten. So it is ink on paper and it is reproduced by hand. So you can see how these kind of brush strokes or brush type fonts were first formed because they were all handwritten. And you can still see that if you actually go back to your Microsoft Word, open the fonts, you will still find fonts like these, which were originally from people like them who were painting out for the sake of conveying information visually. After handwritten font, what came about was the printing press. So that came with the Industrial Revolution. So not only was there printing in black, like we saw in the handwritten form, but they also started incorporating colors. So now that printing is there, all of the different kinds of fonts that they could generate came about, and reproducibility became a thing because they could use the printing presses and nothing had to be hand drawn. So that gave birth to a lot more fonts, which became the standard. And then moving from black also to color, and this was done using lithography or chromolithography as well. And that is how you can see in these examples, it you can see resemblances of the graphic design posters that we see today as well. And these were the origins of it. So after all of that, after the 1950s, when the internet came about, when the digital era also came about, the invention of computers and softwares like Photoshop and the internet paved way to new design disciplines, which we now call as web design, interactive design, UI, UX, digital product design, and a whole new era of things. But even now, if you look at where we are, look at the first example. This is an illustration uh, where you can see simplified versions of people, which is similar to the things that we had seen in the cave paintings, simplified versions of an idea. This illustration is trying to convey an idea. We will nowadays find these things in PowerPoint presentations or on websites, and they're doing the same thing. Now, and like I said, in the second image, you can see there are icons. Everybody knows what each and every icon that is most commonly used means. We know what a home icon is. We know what a back button is. We know what's close. We know what a tick or a cross means. The way that iconography has been carried throughout the years, and now in the digital era, how everybody is comfortable and is very freely conversing using icons. It's just a throwback to how people back in the day were using hieroglyphics to convey ideas. Entire conversations were made. Here we can do entire steps of a process just using icons. If it could be scrolling to Instagram, it could be placing an order on any of your e-commerce websites or ordering food on one of those apps. Any of those things. We navigate through through the entire process just by following buttons and icons. It's as simple as that. And all of the other text, typography, colors, printing, everything we talked about in the evolution of graphic design is what we are currently applying in digital design as well. So the layouts that you see on websites, the layouts that you see in mobile, the apps that are built for all the different devices like iPads or mobiles or even web apps, all of them have their roots because everything uses color, everything uses fonts, and everything uses icons. So something as simple as the things that were invented back in the day are still in use because graphic design is, like I said, we are only using visual elements to attract a user's attention, but actually using them to convey information is the main point here. So that is what we are leveraging, even not only just in graphic design. We come into UI UX design. It is the same thing we do, but with more purpose, with more intention. So I know you have signed up for a course of UI UX, so you might be wondering, why are we talking so much about graphic design? So what does UX have to do with graphic design? So graphic designers attract viewers using images, color, and typography. However, designers working in user experience must justify stylistic choices regarding, say, image location or font with a human-centered approach. So like I said, in graphic design, you make your choices based on your creative expression. But as long as you are fulfilling the need of conveying your information, your possibilities are endless. But when you are a user experience designer, you will be doing similar things. You will still be picking colors. You will still be picking fonts. You will still pick a layout. You will decide where an image must go, where a menu should go, where an icon should go. But here you are not governed by creative expression. Here your main goal is, why are you making your stylistic choices with respect to the user? All your decisions are made based on the user, and it has to be centered around the user. That is why both the words in UI and UX have user in it, because everything you are doing is user centric. So any aesthetic choices that you make, they must serve a purpose. In UX design, we don't create art for the sake of art. So graphic designers eventually branch into visual design in the realm of UX. So you might be a graphic designer, but when it is applied in the realm of UX, it is called visual design. Because here it is not only about creative expression or aesthetic appeal. Aesthetic appeal is very important. Do not get me wrong on that. Aesthetic appeal is what initially attracts any user. They will be attracted by the look, the style, the color. How pleasing is it to use? But it is not only pleasurable for their senses. If you look at the image, it has to be meaningful. And thirdly, it also still has to be usable. You can come to your conclusions about, yes, your choices are meaningful, your choices make sense. But when implemented, if your choices are still difficult to use, they are usable, but not to the point of giving the user comfort, you're still failing in your visual design. So that is why things, simple choices like colors, type, or layout, or images, even the choice of images that you might use in your design, all of those play an important part, not only in UI, but also UX, because every decision you make, uh, both aesthetically as well as in terms of system design or architecture, any decision that you are making as a user experience designer has to be thought out multiple times to make sure that you are doing it from the user's point of view and making it usable and user friendly for them. So that is why this prerequisites course is very much going to be focused on how graphic design elements are used and what are the principles behind it, because these are things that are not usually taught in UI and UX. When UX, people directly go into designing in Figma or mobile design, website design, whatever those things may be. But it is also easy to do that. I could start Figma from day one, day two, like from today itself. I can give you a button. I can show you a screenshot of a button and teach you how to make it in Figma. And you will be able to do it within 5 minutes. That is not a very difficult task. But if I tell you, make a button for a specific scenario, you will replicate the steps that I've taught you. You make a rectangle, you put a text in it, a button is ready. But then when you're actually working on your design for yourself, like when you are working on an individual product or independent product, when it comes to the point where you actually have to make decisions on what color to pick, what font to pick, if you do not have a basis or a background or a foundation where your choices have been, will you just pick blue because blue looks good, or because your customer likes blue, or maybe because you like blue? Or will you pick of the button text to be in black or white? Why should it be in black? Why should it be in white? Are you going to pick your website background to be light or dark? All of those decisions should make sense, not only to you, but at the end of the day, you're trying to sell a product. You're trying to give it to a client, and or even if it is your own product, you're trying to put it out there for others to use. So if your choices don't make sense, the success of your final design, your final product cannot be guaranteed. In the same way, if I tell you pick a font for the website, what thought are you going to put into picking that font? Is it just going to be every other website uses this font? It is a very popular font. Everyone uses it. So I will also use it. Is it going to be as simple as that? But starting out, yes, that might be a very good strategy. Everybody does it. It works for them. Might as well work for me. But as you grow into the field, as you grow as a designer, that strategy will not hold true because, like everything else, especially right now in the digital world, at the pace that everything is changing, you will also have to grow and change as well. Things are changing, trends are changing. Like if you look at the digital age of AI coming through right now, the past few years have only been about AI. In the same way, the past few years have only been about AR and VR. How will you adapt yourself when there is no precedence? It's like if you want to follow the same strategy of everybody else does it, I can also do it. Well, there are going to be things that nobody has ever done. If you are suddenly tasked with designing for AR or VR, there is no precedence for AR or VR. Nobody has designed for it. How will you go into that? That is where these principles of graphic design that are based in psychology, that are based in all of the knowledge that has been uh, gathered over decades, over centuries. All of these things are based in psychology, are based in intuition, which is why they work. So are a lot of the laws in UI and UX. Uh, the basis of design and the reason why design works is our human brain is wired to function in a particular way. There are certain trends, certain majorities based on where a person is from, what the person's gender is, what has the person been exposed to in their life. A lot of things uh, decide how a person would react to something, which is why a lot of this is based in psychology. And that is why there are so many rules or guidelines that are there in graphic design as well as UX design that are good to know before you get into just using a tool or learning about designing an app or a software or a website. Because once you have this foundation, it is easy for you to go into those steps and make confident choices without being lost for any purpose. That is what we are going to cover in the coming lessons. We will go into certain depth about colors, we'll go into typography, iconography, what is layout, what is composition, what are the different principles of visual design, what are the elements of visual design. We'll also look into Gestalt principles, hierarchy, consistency, and finally, another thing to keep in mind would be accessibility, because no matter how pretty or aesthetically pleasing your design is, no matter how usable it is, maybe your product is also working perfectly fine for your target audience. Everything works good. But if you're still not catering to every user out there, if a colorblind person is not able to use your interface, if a physically challenged person has trouble using your interface, then there is still one step that you have missed, because you are just by not making your design accessible, you're basically saying, I do not need this part of the population to be part of my audience. So accessibility is another very important part in design. We'll also look into that during the prerequisites as well as when we are doing Figma and are actually implementing design. I will show you ways on how to ensure accessibility is maintained, at least at its most basic levels. I think, yes, those are all the topics we will be covering in the prerequisites course, and also gone over what we will be covering over the course. I hope everything is clear. And if you have any doubts or anything you would like to share about today's class, you can do it now. We have about 5 minutes. So I would like the courses or these classes to be interactive. You can share your thoughts, you can share anything, any doubts, anything you have, just go ahead. We have 5 minutes that I will be allotting at the end of every class for that. So please go ahead. Any doubts regarding today's class? So just Illustrator or Photoshop. No, actually, you do not need to learn a graphic design tool for the sake of UI UX design, uh, because graphic design is not going to be like at the scale at which it is done in Illustrator and Photoshop. You will not be required to do it to that level in UI UX design. And for all of your needs, like anything that you would actually need to put in your designs, for example, any images, any illustrations, or any vector graphic editing that you need to do, or photo editing also can be done in Figma. Figma also supports vector graphic manipulation like it is there in Illustrator. So it might not be to the same level, but it can be done to a level which is required by a UI UX designer. So you would not need to do it. I will teach you how our graphics and fonts and everything are manipulated in Figma, and you can see the possibilities are endless there. So Figma can do it. That was a good doubt. Anybody else? Anything else you would like to ask? Did you like the course structure so far? Whatever was shared today? Or do you have any suggestions that you would like to share as well? We are going to keep the course completely dynamic. You will get, at the end of the day, your projects are the most important thing that has to come out from this course. That is the main outcome. You need to have well-rounded projects that you can use for your own portfolio so that when you have to go out there in the real world, you know what you're doing, and everybody who sees your portfolio also understands that yes, this person is skilled and this person is knowledgeable in this field. So if you have any comments regarding that, you can let me know. So that is it. Okay, let us wrap up today's class, everyone. See you tomorrow. Tomorrow, I think at the same time, around 7:30. It was nice having you. Have a good evening. Thank you for joining us.